what this is doing is it's going to create a field here that tracks like essentially your body. I'm going to calibrate you, tell the system where some landmarks are on your body. It'll build an animation that's specific, tailored to you.
Okay.
And then I will tell it like, okay, in your setup position, where the pelvis is. And then from there, if your pelvis moves closer to the ball, I can set a parameter. And for most players, I give them 2 or 3 centimeters. And if you go 2 or 3 centimeters closer to the ball, it's going to beep and you're going to be like, oh, I've moved closer to the ball.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, golf-wise, Drew and I were super pumped to come down here. We both suffer from like early extension. The pelvis drives everything. That's like kind of the conductor or whatever. And we're both just so, that's like looking at the overall swing, obviously, but just like, what is our pelvis doing that's like causing the early extension?
Is that the pelvis, it's like the second brain in movement. So it's like neurologically, obviously everything up here is driving everything. But the pelvis will adapt to allow the task to be completed as best possible depending on what's happened prior to the movement or what's going on up here. Okay. So it's looking what's influencing the pelvis as well as what's actually happening.
Right.
So yeah, you've already got that awareness. You're like, okay, why is the pelvis moving this way? And that can be, you can go tons of different options, and that's where the 3D can be really helpful.
Right.
But also the conversation can be really helpful as well to get awareness of, past environments, what's going on when you're out there playing, and things like that.
Well, and that's where I saw the thing, which I just thought was the coolest thing. And I've wondered, we used to I'm 40, so like, I think we're probably all in the same age range-ish. Yeah. But growing up, I would always put objects. Like I'd put a chair here or whatever. And you had that kid doing the thing where his hip would move and it would just go off. I thought that was like, I'm like, I've wanted that since I was 13 years old. Like
that's the biofeedback feature.
Okay.
So we want to do that.
Well, what is that? So what is that? So like you find the issue and you're like, okay, this thing moves too much in, and so like you set it on there where if I move this in, it'll like go off or something?
Absolutely. So what this is doing is it's going to create a field here that tracks like essentially your body. I'm going to calibrate you, tell the system where some landmarks are on your body. It'll build an animation that's specific, tailored to you. Okay. And then I will tell it like, okay, in your setup position, where the pelvis is. And then from there, if your pelvis moves closer to the ball, I can set a parameter. And for most players, I give them 2 or 3 centimeters. And if you go 2 or 3 centimeters closer to the ball, it's going to beep and you're going to be like, oh, I've moved closer to the ball.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people don't have, it's building movement awareness. So when I think of coaching, it's your coaching awareness. In many cases, it's just coaching someone body awareness.
Right.
And a lot of players, remember the golf swing happens in a second.
Right.
So it's like how fast it is, the amount of awareness you can have in there. It's quite tricky.
Awareness just being actually my feel for what is occurring. Like my brain's feel for like, that would be another word for what I'm feeling in my golf swing is also like my awareness. Yeah, would be another reference for like an awareness.
As far as awareness, it's obviously going to be personal to the person. Right. So I might Larry, put you on a biofeedback and say we do it on the pelvis. Say that is like, okay, that's the most dominant segment we want to create some awareness on. So say we put the biofeedback on the pelvis. For you to not move close to the ball, you might say like, oh, I got to really feel like my knee doesn't get out in front of my toe. I got to feel like I keep more pressure on my heel.
Each person would have a different feel. We might have the same issue, but his feel to fix it and my feel to fix it would be different.
Absolutely. And because I think wording is very powerful.
Yes.
Instead of the word issue, you might have a similar response.
Okay.
The issue could actually be very different.
Yeah. Okay.
And the way to resolve it, one person might describe it one way, another way. Some people might say like, oh, it's an external cue. Like, oh, I actually just feel like I have to swing that way, or I have to take the club in this way towards that thing over there. The other person might just say, oh, I really feel like my core scale is very connected. But yet you look at them and you're like, well, they're doing exactly the same thing.
So some people, it's like an internal body thing, and other people, it's like what the club feel is doing.
Yeah, and
is early extension the most common thing you see?
I mean, as far as the extension, like losing space between the pelvis and the ball, it is very common. It's,
Okay.
I mean, it's really just, it's the person's moving close to the ball because they're standing up to create space, or
Right.
usually.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, how can we get this person to rotate better? It's just the pelvis, like I said, it's probably the first segment in most 99% of the scenarios that's going to compensate. It's a big segment, it's in the middle of the body. So it's like, as far as like balance and things like that, we will adapt how we move and stand through the pelvis. So it's like in movement, the pelvis will compensate to allow the movement to happen and to keep the body in balance. So it's somewhat how we're designed. Pelvis is responding in some way to an issue somewhere in the system.
All right.
All right.
Let's figure it out.
Let's do this. Just copy me, please, Larry. Just like that with your right arm. Thank you. Just drop that one and this can stay down. You're good there. Okay, I'm just going to a couple of points on your hips.
Okay.
Still as you can. That's it. So same on the left side, please, Larry.
That's so cool.
Just to kind of, because a lot of players when they leave, they're going to look at a video.
Right.
So I like to get the video to show things as well.
For sure.
Yeah, it shows that you lose space, and I just want to figure out, like, I'm just working on here, like, okay, how are we going to go about in a way for you that makes sense, addressing some of the little stuff. I think it's more of a few little things in your backswing. I think everything moves to your right quite early.
Okay.
Because you move right early, you get to a position where then you start to drift left early with the pelvis. The start of the downswing, your pelvis, actually the left side, the lead side stays low a little bit. It continues to move down as you transition. So typically with the pelvis, what you'd want to see in transition is as the player's in a good position on the trail side, they go to push up it, the lead hip would start moving like forward, up and around. So yours is moving around, but it's moving down and around. So you're getting here and your head gets slightly ahead of the ball. And that's why you get that response of the pelvis moving into a position where you can back the head up and away, create space for the hands and the arms. So from the top for you, your pelvis, the initial move it'll be going more that way. Yes, the head will get slightly ahead of the ball. So from that position there, how are you going to get the club on the ball? You're going to have to release it, back up and away and release it. That's where you get some of the chunky shots. And it's because, and the thing is that a lot of players will work on that move, but that's the move that's allowing you to hit the ball. If you didn't do that, you would probably hit like low ones way out to the right all the time because of how down and ahead. And for you, like I said, Larry, actually, it's little. It's like you get a little that way, a little ahead of it in transition. So your compensation is a little bit of early extension, a little bit of release. And go-to is literally how you move the club away and get you to support the club a little bit better. Because I think then you'll actually rotate better with your upper body, and I think that'll settle down some of the lower body stuff.
Is the pelvis move you would see from like the best player? Like I go this way and I get ahead of it and I stand up late. What would be the thing that they do? What was the thing, not, I guess, correction? What are the most good players?
Okay, so, and I'm going to be honest, there's a couple of things really good players do, and you do a lot of them. So it's like, what do good players do? So good players, I think they move really well from trail side into the lead side. So they're going to be pushing from trail to lead side. But I would say the thing that most players do really well is that the head will stay behind the ball. And as they go into downswing, the arms will get it back in front of the body. So they'll be matched up in a way that the rib cage is more, let's say, over the trail side. So if you go to the top, I'll kind of guide you into, so you can just come down, allow your arms to drop back in front of your body, right there. That's it. So your head's behind the ball, arms are back in front of your body. Rib cage is, I would say, over your right foot. And actually, here's a great reference. I don't know if you can get this one face on, Do you see how in this position his lead arm matches his like trail leg? That's something that I see with a lot of good players. That's something that Mark shared with me, and I went back and looked and I was like, you know what, I 100% agree with that. Because if
What would be bad? Show me bad.
so if we go to the top again, Larry, and we won't do bad, but we'll just do Larry's a subtle bad one. So now go, pelvis goes down, head gets ahead. So you get there, arms are late, so the player will start to back up and release, and you won't get the same match in the same point in time. Players with a lot of range will often go to end ranges to feel the movement.
Yes. I have a hard time holding something in the middle of the range. I'm not strong enough or in shape enough anymore where, like, if you put me in a spot like here, that would be difficult for me to hold in my hips. I'd rather be there.
You'd rather go there.
Because it's at the end and then my joints are kind of holding it.
That's it. So I move quite quickly into your trail side, and we don't really get the support that I'd like to see around this lead side. So what I think that then leads into is that because we're not getting the support through the wrists in the backswing like this, we're shifting to the right, and we're seeing that accommodation through the left knee moving a lot there. Okay, and then because we're here, we're like then moving that way quite early. So a lot of the times when I see that left hip stay moving down like this in the transition, that's in response to how the players move through backswing and how they're positioned at the top of backswing. So I think for you, at the top of backswing, we can actually get it a little bit shorter, a little bit more controlled by learning how to control this side on the way back and how to create stretch from the lead hip to where the hands are. So if this left knee is collapsing in, I'm losing the stretch between, let's just say, like the system that you have there in place is almost like to use an analogy, the way that we're designed is almost like an elastic band that runs from the lead hip all the way up through the trail shoulder, moving up to the trail hand there. So it's like if that left hip's moving, we're not stretching the band. So how are we going to stretch the band at the top of backswing? We're going to go more with the arms, and that compromises the position around the shoulder here. So if I picked up that kettlebell over there and that runs on over here, what's my left hip now going to do? It's going to accommodate and it's going to go this way.
Yeah, 1000%.
So I think if we just create a little bit more
Stretch.
through the system in backswing,
Okay.
we support the club a little bit better in backswing, I then would be interested to see how you'd move in the start of downswing. And then we can do some stuff to refine it as well.
Makes sense.
Okay, so you want to do a little bit of biofeedback. So we might do a little bit of that in just a second with something. So if
Okay.
the club.
Okay.
So if you were to think of, like, just say using a hammer. Like if you just had to like knock a little nail in the wall, you're probably just going to move the hammer head a little bit. You do a little bit of it in the wrist. You have to hit it a little bit harder. So you're going to add a little bit more of the wrist, a little bit of the forearm. Then you got to hit something hard. You're going to add some of the upper arm, some of the humerus, bicep, tricep. Okay, so say for example, if you're hitting a shorter shot, your first half of the swing, you're going to let the club head move. Then club head, a little bit of wrist. Then a little bit of fold in the elbow, right? So it's like we're working it that way around our bodies. For you in the start, you don't use the wrist until you're using the elbow. So it's like just from a sequence in the takeaway, as far as supporting the golf club, we can just add a little bit of the wrist a little bit earlier.
I don't use the wrist until I'm using. Oh, I see. My elbow starts to break and then my wrist breaks?
Pretty much. Just show me a bad takeaway, almost what you did just before.
Like that.
All right, so now show me a good one. Show me what feels like the good one.
So, can I take my right hand off to do this?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, brilliant. Just go to waist high for me.
Okay.
Just go to waist high. Brilliant. Okay, that just makes sense. Show us a bad movement, and I just want us to watch this here. Do you see how the number doesn't really change? So there's not really any of this movement here in Larry's move from sets up to takeaway. So he's not using his wrist to really support the club in the first, I don't know, takeaway phase of the golf swing. Yes. So now go back to the start there, Larry. And just rehearse for me to a good one with the left arm.
Yes. Oh, dude, that's so cool.
So that's what we want. We want him to just get a slightly radially deviated position with the lead wrist. And that gets him to support it well. But more importantly, like the reason we have the conversation is hopefully you have like, okay, there's a lot more value to that than just getting the wrist to do. Ian telling me like, oh, get the wrist to do that. It'll say yes. So like, it'll say yes for Larry anytime he goes to the ranges, but I want him to get the yes. I'd say hip high, waist high. Because that's when he move.
It feels like I'm swinging the club head a little bit more rather than swinging my body. It actually feels like I'm just moving this more a little bit. Like that's getting, feel the weight of the head a little bit more.
Nice. You're so used to like, okay, early in the swing, like that's kind of works there, that going in there. So even when we're adding the wrists, you're still doing the leg there. Let's go and do that one more time. We're going to keep this as stable as we can. Good. I'll do something just for fun because I think you guys will like it.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got both on now. So we've got to get a yes without a beep. So we've got dual biofeedback. So we're using the takeaway improvements to help Larry here control his pelvis movement better. So we're trying to support the core a bit better. So we've got biofeedback on the lead wrist, but we've also got it on his pelvis. So if he moves closer to the ball, he's going to get a beep. Wow. So ideally we want just the yes. So hold on there again. I just got to tell it where you are. So we want no beep and then just a yes.
Wow, so it should be like.
So you're going to do that one more time. Yes, and keep that left heel connection.
Yes. Whoa.
There we go.
Wow.
We're going to do that one more time.
Whoa. Yes.
Oh,
Wow.
There you go. So now you're getting an understanding of what it feels like.
Holy smokes, seriously?
Yes. Whoa.
That's it. How different does that feel?
Whoa.
What's the biggest difference to you there, Larry?
Honestly, trying to keep this back.
Okay.
That's, it almost feels like no matter what I do, if I don't focus on,
Yeah.
like even if I do this and try to push down, it still wants to go forward. I still have to work to stay back.
Nice.
I can see the strain. Yes. Oh. Do it 10 times.
That's it.
Ha.
Can I ask for you, would you be able to take off your shoes actually,
Yeah.
Larry?
Yeah.
So because it's not just about getting the numbers the way that we want the numbers.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's not just about getting the number to just read like, oh, he's back.
Right.
So if you look at my lower body here, if I was to just be like, oh, I'm going to move my pelvis back, and I go this way, now I'm a lot in my heels and I don't have much ankle flexion.
Okay.
So I want you to keep your pelvis back by pushing off your big toes.
Okay.
So it's like, that's why I was like, we'd keep more heel connection there, because if you're used to pushing off your toes this way, I want to get you to push up your toes like more that
And
way.
that's the low.
Okay.
And that's the proper low.
So like if we go barefoot there, now I want you to feel like you use your feet to keep your pelvis back.
Oh.
Feel different?
Oh, okay. So if I go forward at all, it's
That's
gonna...
it. And this is why I have you probably see on my Instagram, I have a lot of players in the bunker barefoot. Because in the bunker, it takes away the stability of the ground. So they have to do a good job with their feet. They have to do a good job with all the postural control muscles. See, he's doing it without me there now.
Dude.
In lots of ways, with lots of people, they'll end up in a certain position where then when they go into a golf position, they're actually very much on the toes and they're just very disconnected from the feeling of the center of mass being in a good position where it's just essentially, I mean, just a rib cage and pelvis, if we just reference those, the pelvis being underneath the rib cage. If we focus on just those two segments because they're central and they're big. So we get the center of mass in a good place, and then you get the person when they bend over, it's like, okay, now the center of mass is tipping forward. So we need to get back into our hips, into our heels, and good connections to the ground with our feet. So if we can get that stuff in setup, it helps everything else. So a lot of your move away, the way you move from, again, we can build awareness of like just standing better. And then I can give you some exercises as well to help you through backswing with some of this stuff as well.
Okay. And Drew, will you film? I'm gonna try to hit one down the line and not let it go off. Will you film it down the line, Drew? Oh my God.
I'm interested to see how that looked.
Yeah.
So with Drew, and I think this was in just response to being like, oh, I just don't want my pelvis to be posterior tilted because it causes pain. So I think what you've done is your body has been like, we're going to move really far from what caused the pain. So that if I was to just put up like the direction of that pushes, so you get the pelvis in a certain position, it causes a response through the spine. If I put this here, now if I just go on top here, you'll see where your rib cage is actually aimed like out in front of the ball at address. A lot of us will kind of sit a little like this way, and it's very, very subtle in the setup, but in the animation it shows it very clearly how the lower bottom rib will kind of sit that way. So I was in just getting us, when you stood here like this, I was like, okay, we're in a great position. Can we just like from there get a clearer understanding of what doing a good hip hinge is? So if you do think of like golfers like getting to setup, it's like, okay, let's learn what just standing well is. So gravity axials, like we have that, I use the long spine field, tailbone to top of the head, but we don't want to be like long spine like extended through the spine. It's more just like we're maintaining the just the natural curvature in the spine. And then we're creating space rather than compression. Because when we have space, we move really well. Okay, so we learn to stand well, and then from standing well, it's like, okay, how do we like get into the hips well? How do we make a good hip hinge? So the cue that I gave you is like, okay, imagine there's a laser beam coming out your belt buckle and your sternum, so that helps with the rib cage and the pelvis. But then very often when people are going down, the neck will kind of work up this way and then the head kind of sits up. So I mean, you could almost use the eyes as well. As you go down, like imagine your eyes are like tracing down with it as well. So that I probably clean up a little bit of the wrist movement in the start and allow the trail bow to sit. It gets a little this way.
That would make sense because my takeaway is so outside.
It gets a little that way. Right hand stays on top a bit, elbow gets a bit on top. And that does lead a little bit to the rotation, getting a little bit like this way. That stays on top. This gets pushed even down the line as far as like where the elbow is forward and back. It's actually very good. But
This all makes perfect
pushes
sense.
that up there. So that's where I would be going with the rotation. I think we can get you loading better. So you don't have to use like segments changing space to get the push. It might be more like, okay, we get you load better, then you're in a better position. It's like, oh, we've already got more force going down because we're using the ground to create that load.
Okay.
And then you can push it back up instead of it just being, because the amount of down it's probably the most that I've seen. What we can look into is like, okay, what can we do to from the top speed up the hand so that it leads to a response in the lead side that would be like, come on, because if I hold this angle here, I somewhat have to slide to get the low point. You see this in here as well. So if you look at the peak order of the accelerations, you'll see that the club actually speeds up number 4 and then the hand 5. So it's like the club speeds up before the hand speeds up. So we need to, for you, look at how we can speed up the hand. Because his arm isn't extending that way. So first thing is he has to get down to the ball, so everything's so low. And now he's so low, it's like, how's he going to square the face?
Exactly.
He has to square
That's
the face
been
that
my
way.
whole life. That's been my whole life.
Arms around your body. Now just kind of like tap through your heels. So like almost like heels are like coming up and down, just tap in there.
Yep.
Feel any different?
Yeah, I mean, I can feel it right here.
Nice.
Yep.
Bend your knees a little bit more. Tap, 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 tap. I mean, if you were to look on this side, Drew, you'll see how good his posture is now through his lumbar.
It's not look as much like he's riding a horse.
You know, I'm just going to put this inside your foot. So I want you to have a golf ball in between the club shaft and this big toe. So turn your toe out a little bit more.
Okay.
That's it, and allow
Is that going to help me to rotate into the hip?
Absolutely. I just want to do here, I'm interested to see this now actually, before we do the shoulder stuff. Just put your right hand on your stomach, put your left hand on your shoulder, And I want you to just use your left hand to guide your shoulder around. How does that feel?
I feel way more rotated around my hip versus kind of sliding out and then getting up into the load.
Perfect. That way. So I want you to do this. Go into your like amount of bend you'd be in. Perfect, like that. Bend your elbows a little bit. Kind of get your elbows so they're almost like your arms. That's it. Then just push out a bit. That's it. Good there. Now let go of the band with just index and thumb. So holding it in your last three
Say that
fingers.
again.
Let go of the band with index and thumb, so you're holding it in just the last three fingers. Okay. So index and thumb, that's going to get this working. Those fingers are going to get this working.
I can feel it.
Okay, so what I want you to do is just make a few circles. Because, okay, do you feel this working in there?
I do. Oh yeah.
Okay, because I think at the top, I think if we can get a bit more sensation of what control could feel like around there, I think that's going to help us to have more control in the downswing. The thumb is pointing to the ceiling, they're pushing into each other. So a little bit more there.
Boom.
And just let your shoulders sit down a little bit more. The left shoulder wants to get very high. There we go. That's it. So right elbow is good because it's pointing in towards your hip. I want you to just maybe like 50-60% pushing into each other, but they're not moving because they're obviously pushing the same amount. So from there, the awareness of what we did around this trail leg, I want you to move your hands with your belly button to about this high. That's it. So right there.
I've never loaded like that
And I
before.
want you to keep your eyes level.
Got it.
I'll do that one more time. So nice and slow this time. Good. That's it. Feel different?
Very.
Okay. I want us to keep that left shoulder down. So once it sets up, go very, very slow. Imagine you're just going to move the club like 3 feet. I'm just going to say you got to keep this knee on my finger. That's it. Feel different?
Very.
Do that one more time. So I'm just going to, you got to keep that on me. Beautiful. Now just turn a little bit more. Nice. Good. They're just following the rib cage. That's all. So if you were to set up there, I'm just gonna say like, okay, you got to move the rib cage, but you're not allowed to hit this.
Got it.
Feel more in front.
Oh, interesting.
So you're gonna have to go earlier with the thumb up, which is probably more the club working up.
Oh yeah.
How does that feel?
It feels like I'm hinging it earlier.
Yeah, that'll help the right elbow sit down. That'll help with how you structure yourself around your trail shoulder, which looks really nice in this angle actually.
Yeah. Here, get the club up, load into my hip.
I wouldn't even go. Oh, don't even go that far just yet. Just go to like 3/4 for now, because I want you to. That's it. So now turn your rib cage through.
Rib cage goes through.
You feel like how much sooner this gets here?
Yep.
That's impact.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I would do a lot of like wedges, 3/4 shots. The reason I said about 3/4 shots for yourself, Drew, just getting really good at when you do a 3/4 swing, making sure your body's tall and you're controlling it here.
Yeah.
Because for a player like yourself that has like a late club release, early club release, but like you're late turning through with your body there, you usually by the time the body's coming through, your hands are all the way over there. So learning how to hit, like, oh, I'm going to start off with like 20%. How do I like get tall and actually finish there? It'll help you to sync up your sequence in the downswing.
Got it. Okay.
All right.
I got it. I'm processing. You've given me a lot to process.